I feel like there's that stigma, right? Where it's like, oh, I don't want to go and have a bad trip. I don't want to, you know, to do one of these, because there's different types of at home even, right? So you could go to one of the clinics or something, like we have them here. I'm in Chicago. We have them here in Chicago. Or you could do one of these at home treatments. And then, you know, you're kind of like, well, what do I do if something goes wrong? Right. I think there's a little bit of that. And unfortunately, too, I think just like what happened with Matthew Perry was very negative on like the positive strides that were made, because it just kind of gave, especially after the documentary that came out, I think it was earlier this year, where they kind of, I mean, the whole thing's heartbreaking. So I think there's just so much stigma there. And that, you know, from my perspective, I remember I was like, I don't want to have a bad trip, and I don't know what life looks like after that. So it was like something that I was considering doing to treat or help treat my depression. And I just got scared. And I think a lot of people are a little uneasy about it. So what would you say to them and me?
So much. Yeah, and you for sure. So much to say. Yes, what you're describing, this sort of like, I don't want to have a bad trip and I don't know what life looks like after. There's like a term in the literature that is epistemically transformative experience, which means like something that is so, it shatters the veils so strongly that epistemology, like the way you view the world, it can shake that up. And that can be very scary. Like I heard from a very close friend at one point, I had an experience, a psychedelic experience that tore me apart and shook up the way I view the world so deeply that I needed months to put that back together. And
Jeez.
he was lucky enough that, you know, he made some money. He was like able to take some time off work and deal with it. Not everybody can afford to do that. And in fact, like one of the things that we wanted to do at Joyous was make this affordable and accessible. And what that led us to do is one, make it cheap. Like it's $120 a month at this point, which is much more affordable than anything else that we know of in the ketamine space.
Yep.
One, yeah. But two, this, we thought so much about safety. Like, yes, there are companies that are prescribing and selling and sending home much larger doses. And I think they're doing it as responsibly as they can. They train like a family member to be a sitter to make sure that you're safe. And they have integration coaches. Like I'm not here to poop on that. But we were scared about it. We were scared about what does it mean to send a big dose to someone who is psychedelically naive, who hasn't seen through the fact that we construct reality and we construct reality in ways that are hurting us. But it's still scary to realize, oh wow, I'm in a way like I'm not fully present to reality because I'm so in my head about certain things. That's a scary thing to see. And so we didn't want to do that. And we started looking into other approaches. And it was this very serendipitous meeting between our chairman and who's the woman who's now our chief medical officer, Bobby. They just happened to sit next to each other at a conference. It's called the Microdose or something like that in Florida. And she started telling him that she has been using the protocol that we're now using. We've evolved a little bit. The baseline was very much something that she had already done with, I think, up to 500 patients, and that she was seeing incredible results for depression and anxiety. And that's when we started investigating this. We ran a pilot using her protocol, and we're just blown away by what we saw, which is this very gradual but profound shift toward well-being. So these low doses that are, we start at between 10 and 15 milligrams, and it's about a 25% bioavailability. So like a quarter of that medicine gets into the system. So at 10, 2.5 milligrams of ketamine, at 15, three and three quarters, whatever. Very, very low doses. That's where we start people. Some people don't even feel that. Like that might be considered truly a microdose in the sense that people say microdose is like sub-perceptual. You can't perceive it. For some people, that's that. For some people, they do feel something, even at 15, even at 10. Totally fine.
People have different sensitivities to different things. That's, yeah.
Totally. Which is why this is such a personalized program. Like we start asking them daily in these questionnaires that we send to check in. What is your sleep like? What side effects are you experiencing? What is your mood like? What symptoms are you experiencing with your original depression, anxiety, PTSD symptoms? So we start tracking that. And on the basis of their responses, we're able to adjust the dose upwards or downwards and tell them what times of the day might be ideal for them to take it. Certain psychological profiles do better with taking it like right before bed. Others take it in the morning. And then we're also able to say, you might benefit from taking that. Your total prescribed dose today is 60 milligrams. We think you might benefit from splitting it up into 3 or 4 smaller doses throughout the day, right? So the system, over 84,000 patients, has gotten even smarter around like who should be doing what. Like we do, of course, bring AI in just like everyone else.
Yeah.
And we've learned a lot about what's ideal, but regardless, it is gentle and gradual. It's go low, go slow is the
Yeah.
internal mantra there.
Well,
And
I
so
think
you're
that,
able,
no, please go ahead.
you're just able to start seeing through the veils much more gradually. It's not like they're all torn off at once. You start dropping beliefs a lot more gradually and a lot more gently, and it integrates more harmoniously into who you actually are in life. And so the fears around, will I have this big shakeup that's gonna, people joke about you do ayahuasca and then you quit your job and go herd goats in the mountains. We haven't seen that yet. That doesn't seem to happen for the way that we're doing things. The experience itself is not, so I want to be careful on how I say this because one of the most common things we do here in the first 2 weeks is that people will have a big emotional experience. It's not necessarily a bad trip. You're not like stuck in your fears. A bad trip is when you're overwhelmed by your fears. Your nervous system, goes and often a bad trip, psychedelic people say there is no bad trip. Bad trips are all there for it to be healed. Fair enough, but that doesn't mean it's a pleasant experience. That doesn't happen with our dosing. But what could happen is sometime in the first few weeks, people often report this emotional experience. I had a night of just crying. I had a night where I was so angry, I like punched my pillow and yelled, but something releases. Something that we didn't want to feel got to be felt, and we got to express it, and something moved. I think that's a really positive experience for most people. Almost
Absolutely. I
everyone.
think
I haven't barely heard of otherwise. Yeah.
I was going to say, I actually think everybody needs to have that sort of experiences, especially nowadays with the climate that we live in with social media. And here, this kind of, I was thinking this when you were talking earlier about like big T, little T for different types of trauma. And I've always kind of believed, like, myself, that what happens to you and what happens to someone else could literally be identical, but because of who you are, your experiences beforehand, and your genetics and all these things, like, they impact people in different ways. And so I think the same approach is just how people should think about, well, everything in life, but trying a new treatment like this, is that you're going to have your own unique experience, and that's okay. And I remember, like, when I was first exploring this myself, being scared of the bad trip, was very much like, I don't want to make my depression worse, because now I had this bad experience and I feel even more disconnected or whatever, that, because that's my big thing is, when I get super depressed, I feel very disconnected. I always feel like I'm floating in space without a tether.
Alone, yeah.
Yeah. And so, like, I would think to myself, I'm like, well, I don't need that to get any worse. It's, yeah, I think
Yeah.
go ahead.
I think what many people find is that they feel more connected to reality because it feels safer to be there. And part of that is just having the experience of being able to be present with these negative feelings without them feeling so overwhelming, without them feeling like you're so identified with them. And that's because of the spaciousness that the state allows. Like, suddenly you're able to be like, instead of a body that's fully fused and identified with these feelings of depression, I'm bigger. There's more breathing room. And the feelings of depression may still be here, but I can explore them. I can touch them. I can experience them without the overwhelm. And just that gives a sense of freedom.
Yeah. What's so interesting to me, and I think I do this, I've gotten really good at this, kind of like disassociating myself from, like, things that I think of, believe, in the world, and like politics and all of this stuff, where it's like, you can actually be separate from your thoughts.
Totally.
And that's a skill that is not, I mean, I'm probably worse at it than I sound right now, but it's one of those things where I think getting sort of any kind of support that's like, I don't know if organic is the right word, but like giving you the space to explore your thoughts, separate from your thoughts, just give you that little bit of an extra nudge, or
Yeah.
yeah, and safety is really helpful, would be really helpful for a lot of people.
Two things just occurred to me.
Yeah.
The name Hamilton Morris, which was that's the name I couldn't remember earlier. He has
Oh,
a
okay.
fascinating episode about ketamine and about many other
I'm gonna
psychoactive
write that down.
medications. He's an investigative journalist. I think he's Errol Morris's uh, son.
And
That's one.
what was the name you said? Harold what?
Hamilton Morris.
Hamilton.
Yeah,
Where'd I get Harold? Thank you.
and it's called Hamilton's Pharmacopoeia. That's the name of the not cornucopia, pharmacopoeia.
Pharmacopoeia.
That's
You were
the
close. I gotta give you
I was.
credit there.
I almost got there. Hamilton's Pharmacopoeia explores in an investigative journalism way. I think it was Vice was the production company. Really interesting background on many psychoactive medications. So just worth nerding on if you're interested. The second you did bring up Matthew Perry. I'm happy to talk about that.
I wanted to ask you. Yeah, I would love to talk more about that because I will say like I'm a huge Friends fan. I loved Matthew Perry. I loved his journey. It's heartbreaking, the whole thing, but that whole story is it's just sad. And I think that what happened to him is a tragedy and on lots of accounts, but like, how does something like that happen? I'd love to hear your thoughts on any of it.
Sure.
All of it.
The first thing to note is that he didn't die of ketamine. He died of drowning. We can go read the New York Times report. And drowning while on ketamine is actually a well-known thing because that's what the dissociative piece does is like you're not as in your body. You may not notice as you drift off. This used to be a thing in the 70s that people went into sensory deprivation tanks on ketamine and they died. And don't do that. Please don't do that. But the other thing to note, and this is also in the New York Times report, is that when they did his autopsy, they found anesthesia levels of ketamine in the system. Like a person without a ketamine addiction would not have been able to be on that much ketamine without being in a state ready for surgery, like out, anesthetized.
Jeez.
So, it really is just illustrative of this poor man and how much medicine he was taking. Matthew Perry talked about being basically born addicted. His mother was using while he was in utero. He wrote in his autobiography, I know the next time I relapse, it'll kill me. And that's what happened. And so how do you get to that state? Through, just like you said, the context is everything. And the context is decades, including prenatal time, around addiction and trauma. And it's a heartbreaking story. There's nothing heartwarming about any of it. It is just utterly devastating. And I also loved Friends.
Yeah.
He was so much fun.
Yeah.
It really is super, super sad. The doses we prescribe are somewhere between 50 and 100 times lower than what he must have had in his system. Even if you take your entire pack in one day, which please don't do it. We will find out that you did it and we won't give you another prescription. But we do check in on that. Even if you take your entire package, unless you get in a hot tub, you're going to be fine. Like, don't do it. That's not what you're prescribed to do, but it's no different than taking the entire bottle of prescription medication that you received in one day. You're not supposed to do that either. So don't do it. On the dosing front, taking a Tylenol a day versus taking a whole pack of Tylenol is the difference between you're totally fine and you've killed your liver and you probably won't survive. And so dosing is the name of the game here. I just can't believe the doctors allowed him to get to that place. It is heartbreaking.
Did you watch the, I think it was on Peacock, the documentary? It was like an hour long.
You didn't tell me about it.
Oh my gosh. I'll send it to you after the fact.
Me too,
It's been a while now, so I'm trying to remember, but like the doctors and his personal assistants and whatever, they were like literally talking about how much money they were making off of him by over prescribing this stuff. Like they were, I think, I don't want to misspeak, but I'll send it to you and you can watch it. I think I need to watch it again, but they knew what they were doing and they were taking advantage of him having money and being able to pay them whatever to give him however much he wanted. And I think that, what's so sad about that is you're literally taking advantage of someone who's sick. And it's hearing like the text or seeing the text messages and the investigation and everything in that documentary. It's just so sad. It's really depressing.
It's awful.
Yeah.
It reminds me a little bit of the Michael Jackson story too.
Mm-hmm.
Just taking advantage of a sick person who who just wants to feel better.
Thank you for listening to this clip from the full episode of Eyes Wide Open. Please like and subscribe for daily clips and new episodes that drop every Tuesday. I appreciate you.